Doamnelor și domnilor, bună ziua, vă salut în această sală, vă mulțumesc că ați găsit timp prețios pentru a vă alătura evenimentului nostru. Sunt bucuroasă să vă văd. Eu mă numesc Galina Cicanci, eu sunt country officer la Corporația Financiară Internațională, partea grupului Banca Mondială. Am organizat acest eveniment dedicat temei construcțiilor verzi și clădirilor verzi. Am alături de mine o echipă mai mare de experți, deci eu o să vă prezint pe rând. Vreau să vă zic că organizăm această prezentare, acest public talk, în parteneriat cu AmCham. Din păcate, Mila, care trebuia să fie aici împreună cu mine, a rămas blocată într-un board meeting, care este la fel foarte important și ea o să se alăture pe parcurs. Asta nu înseamnă că noi abuzăm de timpul dumneavoastră, deci am început aproape, cum am promis, la ora 2. De ce această temă? Deci, economia Moldovei este cam la 70% deja cumva integrată în cea a Uniunii Europene, prin exporturi, prin importuri. Cred că perspectiva de aderare la Uniunea Europeană face ca această integrare să devină și mai profundă pe viitor. Și trebuie să ne dăm seama că într-un anumit moment vor veni asupra noastră anumite procese, anumite fenomene care au deja loc în regiune, în vecinătatea imediată, și atunci ar fi bine să știm ce este și ar fi bine să le cunoaștem un pic din timp, ca să ne acomodăm, să ne pregătim și să ne simțim mai confortabil atunci când schimbările astea survin. Deci, am realizat că în jurul nostru, în Polonia, în România, discuția și, de fapt, nu doar discuția, dar faptele ce țin de construcțiile verzi și clădirile verzi sunt în toi. Devine cumva un mainstream în industria construcțiilor, în industria real estate în sensul mai larg decât doar construcții și în spațiul financiar. Noi, AFC, suntem instituție financiară, dar suntem instituție de dezvoltare și misiunea noastră și mandatul nostru ne obligă să aducem nu doar investiții, aducem cunoștințe prin intermediul acestor evenimente, astăzi dedicat temei construcțiilor și clădirilor verzi, altă dată poate vom face economia albastră. Urmează și dumneavoastră să ne spuneți care sunt temele de interes, pentru că vrem să transpunem cunoștințe înainte ca ele să vină peste noi nepregătite. Vrem să transpunem experiența altor țări. Vrem să discutăm dificultățile pe parcurs, ce să copiem, ce să nu copiem. Astăzi, la acest eveniment ne propunem să discutăm ce totuși sunt clădirile și construcțiile verzi, ce anume le califică drept verzi, în ce moment și cum o careva clădire devine oficial verde, cum se certifică. De ce apar clădirile verzi? Care este cererea pentru acest fel de imobile? Unde se întâlnește cererea cu oferta în acest sector și, normal, dificultățile. Deci, vă invit să provocați speakerii de azi, pentru că ei sunt experții, nu eu. Eu vreau să vă provoc din start, ca să ne spuneți, pe lângă toate tehnicitățile, și care este elementul speculativ, ce proporție din industria clădirilor verzi este cu esență economică, cât din acest concept este marketing pur, pentru că eu am auzit și asemenea percepții și nu prea avem un panel în agenda oficial, dar considerăm că astăzi toți cei prezenți sunt parte a panelului. Vă invit să discutați, vă invit să puneți întrebări în orice moment a acestei prezentări. Deci noi am ales formatul Public Talk, unde facem prezentarea, dar vă invităm să participați. Evenimentul va fi înregistrat. Nu avem broadcast live, dar va fi înregistrarea disponibilă public pe YouTube, cred că chiar în două limbi, în engleză și în română, pentru comoditatea celor care fie nu au ajuns, fie care vor să evangelizeze în continuare în rândul colegilor conceptele care noi le discutăm astăzi. Eu invit în scenă, ca să zic așa, colegii mei care sunt experți în domeniu, David Serna Valencia, Omid Saberi și Andrei Zaripov. Ei vor vorbi în limba engleză, vă rog să utilizați traducerea sincron care o avem asigurată. Dear colleagues, you can take your seats in the panel and the floor is yours.
Welcome everybody to our first in-kind event, which we are doing in our platform on the GBAC. I don't know if anybody of you already participated previously. It's our Green Banking Academy, and under this academy we are disseminating the knowledge about the different topics related to climate. So the recent event was dedicated to the topic of the carbon credits and the climate smart agriculture. Next one will be on their topic of their climate risk management. And today we have first in kind offline event for GBAC, country specific, and this topic is dedicated to the green buildings. So GBAC is the platform where we actually aiming to disseminate the knowledge. We have the websites, and you will see there a link to that website. Please, it's free of charge. We are recording sessions. We are putting the sessions for your attention, and we are usually covering their different topics. But at the same time, it's also might be on the client-specific linked. So this is their visualization of the websites, and on the website you might find a lot of their technical information, you might find the previous recordings, you might find their connections with those experts, and it's our input to stimulate their interest to the climate change. Climate change agenda is quite big one, right? Right now, I mean, like yesterday was their 2nd of June, and it was plus 35. I don't know how many times you may recall that kind of extreme high temperatures in the beginning of summer. So we definitely in the climate change modes, and we will need all of us to do an effort to stop that dramatic changes. So this platform is only one part of their big project, which called on the Europe Sustainable Finance Project. With this project, we are working in the 15 countries, and my pleasure to lead this project and the project manager. And our goal is to support mainly financial institutions to change their patterns and to build the capacity to develop the knowledge, to develop the products, to create the new business in the different areas in the climate-related areas. Once again, today we will have an event dedicated to a new topic for Moldova, and we initially thought to give you some basic information. This is your amazing chance to learn about this topic. Please do not hesitate to ask questions, even if we will have their separate session of the Q&As. You also, if you have some immediate question, please raise your hands to our speakers. Today we have really extreme expertise here. So we have their global leads in the green buildings from their IFC joining us from Washington, D.C. His name Omid, and he will be our next presenter, but as well after him we will have another colleague join us from the Latin America, where we have quite successful cases with the green buildings. So we are aiming to have this event as practical as possible. All the slides will be shared with you later, so there is no need to do the slides. Most probably the picture is not that bright to catch everything, but you also have screens, so you might look there. But once again, all the materials we will disseminate a little bit later. Please do not hesitate to ask questions. This is, once again, there is no stupid questions. This topic is extremely new for vast majority. Please ask questions. If you will not ask questions, I will then ask you to ask questions. So then, with this, without any further ado, I will pass a mic to my colleague Omid, so he will give you their strategic global perspective.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you so much for being here. I want to first of all thank all of you to spend your afternoon with us. But also I want to thank our country team. This is my first time in Moldova. It's an amazing country with lots of potential, and hopefully we can help to work together to grow the economy and also grow the building sector together. So my name is Omid Saveri. I'm industrial specialist for IFC on green and resilient buildings. We have been doing these investments in green and resilient buildings for almost 15 years now. And in the last 15 years, we grow from almost zero investment in buildings. When we started as a bank, when we started our climate investments, most of climate investment were in solar and renewable energy. Now, almost last year, we had one of the largest portions of our investments were in green buildings. And that really shows how the economy can switch toward more greener assets. The presentation here will give you a bit of a global picture of why buildings are important, and then we'll talk about a bit more deep dive around what are the solutions that can be taken forward. So when we started the program, actually a lot of, even in IFC, for us, the goalpost was to certify buildings as green assets, green certified assets. And that certification was around certifying by BREEAM, by LEED, by EDGE, and we were saying that if one day we have projects certified, we have, our mission is accomplished. But today we realize that that's not enough. And if we look at the global targets, is all around net zero carbon buildings and net zero buildings, but also on resilient buildings. We are hearing about, yesterday in part of India, the temperature reached 52 degrees centigrade. And that temperature was never recorded in that city. And here we are also feeling that the higher temperatures hitting us. So we need to also look at resilience, how we want to make sure that our buildings and our people are protected against disasters. At the same time, our buildings need to be low carbon. So our buildings need to electrify, we need to reduce our reliance on fossil fuels, we need to look at green materials. Materials is a big challenge globally. A lot of countries are facing problems with materials, green materials. We need to look at more energy efficiency. So previous energy efficiency targets are not enough. And we also need to look at what kind of disasters can happen based on climate change, and we need to change our buildings. So in that context, if we look at global figures, buildings accounts roughly around 40% of global emissions. So we know that for us to decarbonize buildings, decarbonize global economy, we have to make all our sectors zero carbon. But buildings, when we look at buildings, which is 40% of global economy emissions, 40% is quite challenging. The reason why building sector is the most challenging one, because as you know, you live in a house. If your house needs to be zero carbon, what would it take? Our offices, this building here, the hospital, the school that our children go to school, all of them need to decarbonize. And to decarbonize them, step by step, we have to change our way of construction. We need to look at refurbishment and all the solutions to change the buildings. So if we don't do anything on our building sector now, we are going to have almost 13% increase in our emissions in buildings. If we look at the mix of building emissions, we see that developed countries like Western Europe, US or Japan, they are already reached their peak. They're past their peak and they are not going to increase their emissions in building sector. But developing countries like Moldova would continue to grow the emissions because you still need to build more housing, build more commercial buildings. So emerging markets are going to take the large portion of emissions. In the graph on the left, you see the top emitter in the world. Number one would be China. And after China, emerging markets would be the second larger emitters. And then developing markets. And if you look at the sectors, building material sectors, cement and steel are going to be the largest emitters in materials. So we need to look at green steel, green cement, or low carbon steel and cement, as well as building operations to be more efficient. Europe has already started to put tax on carbon. So carbon material import will be subject to tax situation based on carbon emissions. So those materials are going to be more and more expensive if they are not low carbon. So what do we need to do to change our building sector? So if you look at every single building here, can you imagine that your buildings are only running on electricity? You don't use gas, you don't use diesel. The same way that we are looking at cars to be electric, buildings need to be electric, all electric. Number two, we need to look at innovative construction solutions. What kind of construction solutions we can find that are more low carbon and also they are low cost items. We don't want the cost to be higher. We talked about low carbon emission materials. We also need to look at how we can capture carbon in our buildings. For example, use of more wood, sustainable wood, can reduce reliance on highly carbon intensive materials. But the good news is that this is possible. This is possible with not a lot of investment. And if we start switching our systems today, we can reduce our emissions by 23% by 2035. So there is possibility of switch. And that switch is not only a cost to the economy, but also it's an opportunity to economy. So a lot of us, we can create more jobs, as we know that a lot of our younger generation now are suffering after COVID from losses of job and economy and inflation. So this can be a good business model for our economy. And if we look at the value of this change, we see that if you look at Eastern European economies, the potential is around $17 billion of value of transition. So the value of greening is $17 billion. And normally greening the assets costs around 3 to 4%. So if you look at the value of the construction sector, the value of greening would be $17 billion. So that $17 billion means a lot of business for banking sector, a lot of business for construction sector, as well as material producers and engineers and architects. This slide shows how green financing is growing. And here I want to ask my colleagues in the room that they work in the banking sector to pay a special attention to this. If you look at the switch between 2017 to 2022, the green financing on the left, you see the green bar is growing so rapidly. So green finance products are growing. What is green finance product? Green finance product means that when you provide a loan or a mortgage, if this mortgage goes to solar energy or the mortgage goes to green building, that mortgage or loan can be counted as green finance. We also see very special financing tools, for example, green bonds in capital markets. We see sustainability-linked loans. And you may say, what does it mean, sustainability-linked loan? It means that, for example, IFC provides a loan to a building developer saying that if you decarbonize your buildings in 3 years, we give you lower interest rate. So the interest rate reduction is linked to a KPI that links to carbon reduction. And this has been growing very fast in our business as well. There is a lot of requests from the market for low sustainability-linked loan. So what needs to be done at the country level? At the country level, we need to look at taxonomies, green taxonomies. We have been working in different countries on green taxonomies. We would be happy to support you here. For example, in Mexico, the green taxonomy is already published, and banks and construction sector is following green taxonomy. What green taxonomy means? It means definition of what is green, what is not green, as simple as that. For example, is this building a green building? If I provide a loan to this building, does it count as green or it doesn't count as green? What kind of cars are green cars? What kind of cement is green cement? So taxonomy means definition of these situations. So the other thing is financial institutions. Normally banks are followers rather than leaders. But in this sector, banks can easily lead the market. We have seen this happening in Colombia. David later will explain more. And we have seen this work happening in other countries. And our colleagues, Andre here and Kilo, they are from Financial Institution Group and happy to help you out with framing how we can work towards green finance. Public sector is very important. We need government buildings all to start measuring their carbon footprint and starting to reduce their carbon footprint. Carbon tax is going to come here, so at some point we would be dealing with carbon tax. And finally, we need to also look at how we can bring the donor finance and lower interest rate financing for green assets to speed up the transition of green buildings. Within IFC, we have a program, a standard called EDGE, and I'm going to briefly explain what EDGE Green Building Program is, so for you to get a better sense of how EDGE can support transition of the market here in Moldova. And please, as Elena mentioned, please ask questions at the end. If you have any questions about this, please ask us. We would be happy to help you out with. So the EDGE program is designed as a standard by IFC. It's similar, for example, you have heard about ISO standards, right? It's a standard that's developed by IFC, but third-party certifiers are using this program to certify buildings. That makes the bank's job and government job much easier, because instead of you going to each building and saying, oh, do installation here, change your window or change your lights, you say, get an EDGE certificate. And you know that with that, they will be doing all those elements that are needed for the building. EDGE is already approved by green finance standards like CDP or EU taxonomy or ICMA, and that helps you also to provide green financing using EDGE certified assets. And also, EDGE can be used for decarbonization, and I'll show you how EDGE can be used for decarbonization in a second. The other part is around where we are with Edge, right? As you see, we started Edge roughly around 2015 in IFC. And the graph there shows how the market is adopting Edge in different countries. And if you look at the map, you can see that almost 100 countries, more than 100 countries, projects are getting certified with Edge. From US all the way to Japan, if you look at Europe, all over Europe, and here in Moldova we have projects certified with Edge. So this means that this standard is a standard that can be adopted in any country. The assets that are certified with Edge valued at $80 billion so far. So huge potential, market potential for this standard to be adopted. What is Edge and how does it work? And I encourage you, if you are an engineer or architect, to go to the website and test the website, because we had meetings with. One time we had a meeting with one of the ministers of construction, and at the start the minister said, why do you feel that I should pay attention to this? This is too technical. I don't want to spend my time on this. And when we explained and showed how the application works, it was interesting because he started to play with the tool and he said, I want to test my house. I want to test our office and see whether my house is efficient or not, because it's a very easy tool to use. It's not sophisticated to use. There's an application that's free to everyone to register and use. And when you use the software, you can check whether your building is efficient or is not efficient. The standard is simple. You need to reach at least 20% efficiency in energy, in water, and in materials. And if you get these 3 levels, then you can certify your assets. And the certification comes from third-party auditors, and these auditors and certifiers, they will review, come to the building, inspect your building, and then provide a certificate. So if you are a home buyer and you're going to buy a house that has this certificate, you are sure that someone has checked this house. It's not only the developer saying that this is a good house. If you are a bank, you can trust this certificate to provide the green finance without any issues. So that gives assurance to the market that there's a label that you can use. The other important point about this standard is that this is specific to each country. So if you are using this in Moldova, it would be specific to the standards here. Other certifications may follow a standard of Germany or UK or US, but this standard has a local standard and local weather built into the system. If you look at the outcome of this tool, the outcome is always presented in numbers. Everything is in numbers, so it makes it much easier for the banks and for you to report. One of the key challenges, if you are an architect, I am an architect by training. Before these days, when I design buildings, if you ask me how much what would be the cost of energy of your building, I don't know what would it be. How much water will be used in your building, I have no idea, because it's a lot of calculations to come up to those figures. But with this application, it will show you exactly how much would it cost for energy, for water. It will show you how much carbon emissions would be there, and it will show you how much carbon emissions are there and how much efficient carbon reduction is there. So tomorrow, if a new regulation comes and say, I need you to report your carbon emissions and carbon savings, you can easily look at the EDGE certificate and give those numbers without any problems. EDGE has 3 levels. The basic level is EDGE certified with 20% efficiency. What 20% means is that if you are paying, say, 100 euros for your electricity and water bill, with the EDGE certification, you will be paying 80 euros. So you will be saving 20 euros per month on your electricity bills. We had hotels that saved per month 80,000 euros using EDGE. monthly 80,000 euros, because the energy and water bill was very high, and when they cut the energy, this happened. We have been seeing that retail shops, they're using Edge to reduce the cost of operations. The level 2 is Edge Advanced, which is 40% efficiency of energy. And with Edge Advanced, your building becomes net zero ready building. And the final level is zero carbon asset. And a zero carbon asset, basically you're meeting the highest level of standard of any building. So why do we need to have a zero carbon certification? So if you look at the requirements that's set by global standards, they say that all our buildings need to be zero carbon by 2050. So in roughly 25 years, all our buildings need to be zero carbon. And by 2030, every single new building built needs to be zero carbon. And imagine the buildings that are built today, how many of them are zero carbon? Almost none of them here in Moldova. So we have 5 years, 6 years to switch our building construction toward lower carbon. So it means that there is a lot of opportunities. At the same time, there's a lot of work that needs to be done. And by 2050, we need to look at our existing buildings as well and see what we can do in our existing buildings. And we can look at product finance or financing renewable energy in lower distributed solar energy and other forms of renewable energy to compensate the existing buildings. This is basically the same graph, but it shows that the floor area is going to continue to grow. If you look at the orange color, is the additional floor area that will be built. And if you look at the blue colors, it shows the emissions reduction requirements. So globally, we will be going to build more and more buildings. At the same time, we need to reduce our emissions. So this is a contradiction. And that's why it's important that every building that built today needs to be built green. Edge also can be used for ESG requirements. A lot of your companies may already have ESG requirements. What it means under ESG reporting, that you need to look at how you can report your carbon emissions under ESG. We have a lot of clients here in Romania, for example, that they started looking at their annual carbon emissions of their Scope 1, Scope 2, and Scope 3. You may say, what is Scope 1, Scope 2, Scope 3? Right? So if you own this building, in this building, if you are burning gas, it would be a Scope 1. If you are using electricity, it would be a Scope 2. And your materials that you purchase, that would be a Scope 3. So these are the 3 scope. And each of them would have carbon emissions. You can translate them to carbon emissions. And these companies are starting to report their carbon footprint and carbon emissions every year. So the EDGE certificate itself is a very easily understandable certificate. It will show you the energy saving percentage, water saving percentage, and less embodied carbon percentage reduction. So even if I give this to my grandmother, she will know that she will be saving 60% on her energy bills, and she would be very happy. As simple as that. My grandmother doesn't need to know that what is the kilowatt hour per square meter reduction or how many gigaton of carbon is saved. These figures are very easy to understand. But your question would be, okay, how much would it cost me to do this? And obviously, if this costs me, 50% more expensive, then I would not do this, right? The reality, the tests that we have done with this in many countries, we see that on average, it costs around 3% increase from a normal building to an EDGE certified building. And the 3% can be paid back within 3 years. So it's no-brainer, because if you can build your buildings, we were talking that here in Moldova, the cost of housing has been going up very fast. Of course, probably in the last few years, the cost of housing has gone much more than 3%. So with 3% extra cost, your building would be green today. So if you are a developer, please develop your buildings with EDGE or any other certification system. We would be happy to help you to get this done. If you are buying a house, ask your broker you want to buy a green building. Even if they don't find any, ask them, because this is important for them to start looking at this. If you are owning buildings, if you are a bank, if you are owning this building, refurbish the building to certify, that you can use EDGE to certify your assets. If you are a bank, put together a green finance solution, and you would see, David will show you some of green finance solutions. And if you are part of the government, make sure that you put policies to support, like incentives. A lot of countries are putting incentives for green buildings, and those incentives rapidly changing the market. There is another tool that we developed for resilience. I'm not going to explain the details of resilience program, but this is for you to test how your building is acting against climate hazard or natural disasters. We have seen that there are people develop very good green buildings, but it will be washed away with a flood, or there is other disasters that breaks the building down. Europe, thankfully, is quite good in many disaster elements from building cost point of view, but there are still gaps, and that's why these kind of tools help you to identify if there's any disasters that you need to look at. If there's going to be higher temperatures here in Moldova, let's say in next 10 years, if the temperatures reaches 40 degrees, are you going to be able to deal with 40 or 45 degree temperature? So those are the things that this tool will show to you. And we would be happy to explain how this works. Thank you so much, and I'll hand it over to my colleague. Thank you.
Well, good afternoon, everybody. And as I will continue the presentation, I want to present our experience in Latin America. And we really want to try to replicate or to understand what we did correctly and perhaps what we did wrong in our region in order to promote green buildings here in Europe. As Umid was saying, we really understand that there is a need to catalyze the implementation of green buildings worldwide, because otherwise we are lagging, we are not going as fast as we need. As Umid presented in one of those previous slides, we are building many square meters per year, and if we don't build those new buildings with green building standards, then we are having an asset that it is not energy efficient, and it is not that it is not aligned with the Paris Agreement. So by that, what I'm trying to say is that if we don't build green, then we are not going to be able to limit the global warming to 1.5 degrees, which is we are already on that level. So I think it's important to really try to work on that. So I think it's important to understand that when you think about a green building, the first thing that people think is that to build green, it is very expensive and it is not affordable in the market. And that is something that I really find in the market to every country that I go. When you go, when you speak with the people in the market, with the people that are expecting to be homeowners, they usually say that, okay, I really want a building that it is more energy efficient, that it is sustainable, but that they don't find those type of assets in the market. Then when you go to the developers, they say that they could finance or they could build those type of assets, but that the banks are not financing those type of assets. And when you go to the investors, they are saying that, okay, it is very costly and there is no market for that. So for what we have understood on our experience in the market, it is that we are not talking with each other, because I think everybody wants a better world. We are now understanding the importance of fighting climate change, and the bad thing is that we are not taking the most important steps right now in order to avoid to surpass these 1.5 degrees of global warming. So we really need to do something about it. So for that, we have been working with IFC for more than 15 years in this green building transformation market. So as part of this transformation market, we have been working with real estate developers, with banks, with governments, and using the EDGE certification as a tool to decarbonize the construction sector. Why is that? Because we really understand the need that we need to increase the standards of everything that we are doing right now. So through this comprehensive approach, we have been able to bring these green building standards to many more buildings, because if you take a look at 15 years ago or perhaps 20 years ago, those buildings that were accredited or certified as green were only very few buildings, perhaps corporate buildings, perhaps some hotels, some shopping malls. But if you were to take a look at the residential buildings, very few buildings were certified or were implementing green building strategies. So we were losing that opportunity in the market, and of course, housing or residential buildings, it is the largest, the largest share of the whole construction in the industry. So we really needed to promote those standards in that sector of the construction. So for that, we started to work in this green building program. I was really lucky to be working in Colombia with this as part of this. So what we did in my country, it is that in 2015, there was no knowledge regarding green buildings. Nobody understood what we needed to do in order to make a building sustainable. So we worked with the Ministry of Housing, and we launched the National Regulation for Sustainable Construction. So that was the first step, and that is a mandatory standard, a mandatory requirement that all buildings that are built in Colombia should comply with some minimum mandatory standards. Besides that, together with launching the EDGE program in our country, we had the opportunity to issue a green bond with the largest bank in Colombia. And that changed the market, I would say, because with the issuance of that green bond, that bank was able to provide green mortgages and green construction loans for the market. So in that sense, the developers were able to offset part of the investments, of the additional investments that they had to do in their building with better interest rates, both for the mortgages and both for the construction loans. So that was very interesting, because in that sense, the market shifted in order to be a country where there were very few green buildings. And right now, we are the leading country worldwide in terms of EDGE certified buildings. So after that, a bank issued the green bond. Some other financial institutions followed the same approach, and we have been able to keep following that trend. And our final effort was that in 2021, the government of Colombia issued the Colombian Green Taxonomy, which, as Omid said before, through that taxonomy, what we are telling the financial sector, it is to tell them what can be financed or what can be defined as green and what cannot. And that is something very important for the market, because that is something that is forcing the investors and the banks to identify what needs to be done, or what are the energy efficiency measures implemented in the building to say that building is green. And that is something that the Colombian Green Taxonomy was harmonized with the European Taxonomy, and that is something that is happening worldwide. Europe was the first region to adopt a voluntary taxonomy, and many countries are following the same approach. Right now in Latin America, I would say that more than 7 countries have adopted the taxonomy, and I know that many countries in Europe have to be aligning with the European taxonomy. So that is something that we really want to understand what can be done. I don't want to get into the details of these slides. As Andrew said at the beginning, we will share this information with you. But what I'm telling you is about these investment opportunities that we have found in the market. This is the Bancolombia, the largest bank in Colombia. The first green bond that they issued, it was with the support from IFC, and it was the first issuance of a green bond in Colombia. So with that, they were able to provide provide advisory services to more than 300 real estate developers in the market, so they were able to implement those green building standards in the project. Why was that important? Because when we started to work in our country, we noticed that the real estate developers didn't have the knowledge or the capacity building in order to identify the best energy efficiency and water efficiency measures in a project, in real estate assets. So with this advisory program, we were able to offer them this opportunity to understand what needed to be done in that project in the most cost-effective way. So through this support in the market, we have been able to, as I said before, to become the leading country in the world in terms of EDGE certification. And following that, the same bank was issuing some additional bonds in order to provide the financing for these assets, because the market exploded. So after that, the largest real estate developers in the country and many financial institutions wanted to get into this new financial trend, I would say. But right now it is not a trend. Right now it is something that is becoming the new normal. So we are still working with the banks in Colombia in order to increase more and more the standards. So in the case of our country right now, what we are trying to do, it is that the countries the projects are not only EDGE certified, but to achieve the EDGE advanced certification. So what we are trying to do, it is that the new project should have at least 40% energy savings when we design them. So that is something that we are working on. How did we do it? The first thing is that when you want to have a financial sector ready to invest in this type of assets, the first thing that you need to do is to have a pipeline where to invest. So we work together with the banks and with the real estate developers to identify those projects that could be greened, I would say. But that I am trying to say to identify those projects that could implement these energy and water efficiency standards, so they could meet the EDGE standard. By identifying these projects and supporting them, we worked throughout the whole country, doing some events to show the market the importance of green building and to provide some, to empower the stakeholders, I would say, and to provide some knowledge for the market, so it was easier for the market to implement this type of solutions. And with that, we developed specific financial products, so that could be feasible in the market without the large effort by the real estate developers, because we really understood that we could not go against the market. By that, it is that we needed to find a way that the projects could be implementing these standards, but without losing the profitability for the real estate developers, because in that way, if we hadn't done it that way, it would not have been feasible for the market. And with all of that, we were also monitoring the impact of what was happening, and in that sense, we have been able to align our country with the commitments that Colombia did in the Paris Agreement of 2015. That has not only happened in Colombia, that has happened in some other countries. I would say that perhaps the 4 other countries that have been like leading the market in terms of certifications are South Africa, perhaps Vietnam, Mexico. It is like perhaps taking the lead in Latin America because it is a large economy. Right now they are building a lot there and they are certifying a lot of projects, and also Indonesia and, well, many other countries. What we have been able to do, what we have been able to do in these specific countries, it is to structure different financial products in order to be able to provide the financing for this, to implement these green building standards. So, for instance, what we have done it is that in some projects in South Africa, the average extra cost to have a building that complies with the EDGE standards, it is less than 1% of the total construction costs. That translated to US dollars per housing unit, it is $270,000 per residential unit, which is something that can be, everybody can pay an additional $270 for your housing, and if your housing has 20% energy or water savings, then it's something like we would say it is a no-brainer, because when you take that into account, then you really understand that there are opportunities to transform the market. So we are trying to lower those costs. As Omid said before, for instance, in some other assets different to housing, like for instance this Marriott Hotel in Veracruz in Mexico, they are saving more than $87,000 per year in their utility bills. And why is that? Because they have understood the use of EDGE certification system to identify what are the best measures to implement in their projects. And another project that it's interesting to highlight, it is a project in South Africa. It is a real estate developer where they are working, they are developing many housing units per year, and they have been able to demonstrate that the savings in their utilities are equivalent to 1 month of rent from utility savings during the year. So in that way, they are trying to gather more information from the market, to gather more share of the market. And it has been feasible because we have been working together providing financial services and advisory or consultancy services to these real estate companies. So in the case of this company in South Africa that I was telling you, what we did is that we worked together with them to structure the financial product. But one of the things that we understood in the market is that they needed a support in order to change how they were building and how were they implementing these energy efficiency measures. So initially, what they calculated of their energy efficiency measures that they were going to implement in their project, it is that they would have an additional cost between 2 and 6% of the direct construction costs. By providing this capacity building or these advisory services to the real estate developer, they were able to lower those costs up only to 0.25 to 0.8% of additional costs. That is something very important because those additional costs are very affordable for any developer. So in that way, we have been able to provide this to the market. And in this specific case, they have done a measurement in 200 EDGE certified units, and they have been able to understand that they are really providing savings for the people that are living there. As I told you before, this is not South Africa, it is Colombia. In Colombia right now, we are trying to promote even higher and higher standards. And the advantage that we have in the country, it is that besides those financial instruments that we have developed with the banks, there are some public grants or public subsidies for the programs, for the projects that are implementing energy efficiency measures. So right now we are starting to find projects in Colombia that are conventional residential buildings, I would say, that are implementing domestic solar hot water with heat pumps for the water heating, and with using those technologies, we are being able to get 50% energy savings, and in that way, these real estate developers are starting to gather a larger share of the market, and the residents or the users of those buildings are starting to benefit of those energy and water savings. And if you take a look at the different measures that have been implemented in these projects, they are not, I would say that they are not like very high-tech solutions. These are solutions that have been in market for perhaps 15 years or maybe even a little bit more. So in that sense, we have been able to understand what is needed in the market in order to fulfill those gaps and to make those buildings green. And in that, and the other thing that I wanted to highlight about this is that the developer, by implementing these solutions, they have been able to have a VAT exemption because of in any investment that they do regarding energy efficiency, they have a VAT exemption in that. They will also have the green loans, and as they are using these solar hot water systems, the electricity load of the whole project, it is lowering. So when you take a look at the whole building, they are having benefits in many parts. So they are having environmental benefits, they are having tributary benefits, and they are having these financial benefits. And in that way, they are being able to develop this type of projects that the end users are achieving savings in their utility bills, and they will also get green loans for green mortgages for their projects. So I think it is a win-win situation for the whole ecosystem of the country. In that way, I think it's important to move forward in order to see how to make that happen. So what we are trying to do is to give the market the opportunity to understand what is the importance of green building, to understand what is a green building from our side, and to do this capacity building, to provide technical assessment, and to provide the banks the different business model design that they could need in order to finance these real estate assets. And at the end, what we really want to do, it is to increase the reporting of the disclosure of the GHG emissions associated to the operation of the buildings. That is something that is starting to happen worldwide. In March, we attended an event in Paris where it was perhaps one of the largest events that has happened regarding green buildings. And what is happening right now, it is that there is in the market, they are starting to talk about a carbon budget. That carbon budget, through that carbon budget, the real estate developers, they in the future, they will have to disclose all the GHG emissions associated both to the operation and to the construction of buildings. The Scandinavian countries right now, they are calculating that carbon budget. So the new buildings that will build in the upcoming years, they cannot surpass this carbon budget. So in that way, the market is shifting not only to buildings that are energy and water efficient, but also to buildings that are using less carbon intensive materials. As Sumit said before, we are trying to promote the use of green steel or sustainable steel and sustainable cement, but besides that, some countries are pushing forward in order to use different construction materials such as wood or different materials that have a lower carbon intensity. So I'm sorry if I am going a little bit fast, but we really want to have more time for the Q&A sessions. So I think I will try to go to this briefly. Right now, what is going on in Europe, and what do we expect to happen to Moldova in the upcoming years? As I told you, Europe launched the European Green Taxonomy. With that classification system, what they are doing it is to provide the market a transparent and a verifiable system to demonstrate that what they are financing, it is aligned with the Paris Agreement. So that is the first thing that we need to understand, that the green building tax, that the European Green Taxonomy, it is trying to align all the economic activities, and in this case, the construction activities, to be totally aligned with the Paris Agreement. So what they are trying to do, it is to tell the investors where to allocate what they are going to invest, so they are sure that the buildings that they are going to finance are meeting with these new standards. And what they try to do, it is to show that the capex and the opex, the capital needed for those projects and the operational costs of those projects are affordable for the market. The taxonomy has like an overarching objective that is to prevent greenwashing. Europe does not want people to say that they have a green asset when it is not really green. So in that way, what they are trying to do, it is to have different tools that provide the market a way to understand that those buildings that are being built are really green. So in that way, they are trying to enhance the transparency for the entities and the investors. So many companies are becoming taxonomy aligned, and right now different investment funds are looking for projects that are complying with the criteria defined in the taxonomy. So in that way, they will be able to demonstrate that what they are financing, it is really green. The taxonomy has different objectives. Besides them are climate change mitigation, climate change adaptation, sustainable and protection of water and marine resources, the transition to a circular economy, pollution prevention and control, and protection and restoration of biodiversity and ecosystems. So the taxonomy right now, it is requiring that you demonstrate compliance with at least one of these objectives, and besides that, they should demonstrate that they are something that is called do no significant harm. The do no significant harm is that besides complying one of these objectives, you have to demonstrate that your project, it is not going against one of these others. And besides that, the projects are required to comply with the minimum safeguards regarding social standards in the projects that they are doing. I don't want to get into details, but regarding climate change mitigation, what they are doing is that they are requesting that new projects are at least 10% better than nearly zero energy buildings. Regarding climate change adaptation, Europe is requesting these projects to implement different adaptation solutions that reduce the most important physical climate risks. So in that way, what we are trying to do, or what Europe and we from IFC, what we are trying to do, it is to have those projects like less vulnerable to all the natural events that are starting to happen more and more frequently because of climate change. So in that way, we are trying to reduce the climate risk of the new assets that are being built. Something that is happening right now in some areas, it is that the insurance companies are not insuring new assets because of wildfires, because of landslides, because of some different natural events that are starting to occur. And that is something that it is really happening right now in California and in some other parts of the world. So what we are trying to do is that the new assets are adapted to a warmer world. We know that climate change is a reality. We know that the temperature it will be increasing for some years from now on, and these natural events will occur to happen more frequently. So with that, what the financial sector is trying to do is that those new assets are more adapted to a warmer world, and to avoid to build an asset in an area or in a zone that it is like prone to any type of natural events that could result in many financial losses. And part of that, it is also to work in the circular economy. Part of that, what they are trying to do, but this is kind of complex in the market, it is that at least 90% of the waste generated in the project are used in part of the economy, because right now we have a large issue regarding waste management worldwide, and we really need to identify ways that the construction sector is able to either profit of those recycled materials, or at the same time reduces the waste generated, so it is feasible possible to keep building and building more buildings every year without compromising the natural resources that we have, because those resources are limited. So we really need to identify new solutions in order to keep growing and growing. This is this is for you to have more and more details of what it is requesting, but well, I don't want to get into details. I am sorry that one of our colleagues, Elena Rastei, was supposed to be here with us. She's a colleague from Romania. She had some health issues and could not be here with us, but I really wanted to show what happened in Romania. We weren't aware of how Romania was leading the market, or was, from my point of view, like ahead of the market when compared to some neighboring countries. And they really have right now very high green building standards. And you are neighbors from there. We know that you have a very close relationship with the country. So we really think that there is an opportunity to follow a similar approach. So in Romania, the first thing that they do is that in 2005, they had the first law on energy efficiency, which had a gradual process of implementation. But in 2007, the energy performance certificate was mandatory for new buildings. And then year after year, they were increasing the new financial products and the new requirements for the buildings. So in that way, they were able to identify different incentives for property tax reduction for buildings that were implementing any type of building certification, which helped trigger the market to have to implement these green building standards. And working together with different banks in the country, they were able to increase more and more the standards of green buildings. So right now, I would say that Romania has a mature market regarding green buildings, and in Romania they have a local certification called the Green Homes, which is aligned with the European taxonomy. And what they are trying to do is that the projects are implementing this certification. So once a real estate developer implements a project that complies with that certification, they demonstrate that that project is aligned with the European taxonomy. In the meantime, there are 8 banks that are offering green mortgages that are backed by green building certifications, and that is starting to be significantly regarding the market share of the green building market in the country. And during this year, there was the first green bond issued by the Ministry of Finance. So they are really I think the country really understood the opportunities of green buildings, and they are trying to lead the way to make the buildings more and more sustainable every year. So as I told you, there are many banks that are offering this type of solutions, and we have included here some case studies of different projects in the market in order to see what did these projects do in order to have this better than average market standards performance. So what we have found is that in Romania, projects are required to implement a solar photovoltaic system, and through the use of certifications, what they are trying to do is to increase the total share of the renewable energies implemented in the project, so they are able to have more energy savings for the operation of the buildings. And in that way, the developers are having a lower power load and savings in the utility bill, especially for the retail sector, because the savings in the utility bill, it is something that for the developers that are working in housing solutions on residential units, they usually don't care much about that, I would say. But when you are talking about retail or about projects that are being operated by them, that makes a lot of sense, especially in a world right now that we are seeing that every year the cost of electricity, it is increasing. And that is happening in all type of projects. It is happening in residential, it is happening in retail, and it is also happening in healthcare and in some other type of assets. So with the implementation of these photovoltaic systems, with the use of heat pumps and some new technologies that are being promoted by the European Union, they have been able to use or to achieve a better standards in the performance of the building, and that is something that is like paving the way for new standards in the construction sector in Romania, as we expect to happen here in Moldova. And this is something that we prepared like some kind of proposal on how to work on that. And it is important to work together with the national government, so we have different subsidies in order to make this more affordable, to have these energy performance certificates or some type of certification for the buildings that it is mandatory for the market. That is something that is happening in Latin America too. Some countries are starting to implement these energy performance certificates, so there is more information available in the market, because in that way, when you have either an EPC or when you have a building that is certified, when you are going to buy any type of building, you know what is the performance of that building, because if you don't have that information, then the market, like the end user, they don't know if that building is energy efficient, if it is water efficient, and that is something that is, I would say, like having more and more importance in the market. So we are working on that, and we are also trying to differentiate the energy efficiency only from green buildings certified projects, because we really understand that we need a third-party certification that is really stating that that asset, it is green. Because if we don't have a third-party certification, it will open the door for greenwash, and then we really want to avoid that to happen in the market. So we really want to promote green building standards, either EDGE or either any other type of certification system, because in that way we will be able to align what we are building and what we are financing with the standards of the European Union. And we are starting to work with different banks in the country to provide this technical training or capacity building for both the banks and the real estate developers, so they can understand what is a green building, how can they finance these green buildings. I think it's important to have that into account. And I don't want to get into details. This is just for more information for you. But as you will see, right now the projects are starting to be able to demonstrate large energy savings, more than 40%, large water savings, and they are also identifying ways to use materials that have less embodied carbon. That is very important, because in that way we are trying to decouple the growth of the construction sector without increasing the emissions associated to the construction and operation of the new buildings. And as I told you, not only EDGE is a certification for that, also LEED, it is applicable for that. And for us, it is important to understand that all the projects that are certified need to demonstrate what are the energy savings achieved and what are the GHG reduction associated to the operation of that project. And that is something that from our side, from IFC, we really understand that it is important for those projects to disclose what are these GHG reductions during the operation and during the construction, because in that way we will be able to know that we are really doing climate finance. For us, climate finance, it is financing projects that are implementing standards according to the Paris Agreement. So that is what we wanted to present today. Sorry if I went a little bit fast, but as I told you, we wanted to have some more time for Q&A, because it's important that the whole team came here to be with you, and for us it is important to understand your point of view, what are your needs, any questions that you may have of our experience, of our point of view of what is going on or where the market is going. So thanks for your attention.
Many thanks, David. We will ask you back, but after the next presentation. Eu vreau să rog pe Mila Malairă, director executiv AmCham, să ne zică și ea, Mila, bun venit, și vreau să saluți audiența, dar și să ne prezinți următorul prezentator, care este membru AmCham.
Yes, thank you, Galina, and I will switch to English to make sure that everybody understands me well. I'm very glad to greet all of you here on behalf of the American Chamber of Commerce. Actually, we eagerly embraced the proposal that came from Galina, from IFC, to co-organize an event dedicated to green buildings, because it very much matches one of the priority areas of AmCham activity that related to green transition and green transformation and sustainability. And almost all members of AmCham are part of the Green Transition Committee that is functional for some time within AmCham. And this event is first discussion about the future of green buildings. We have to start somewhere, though sometimes it seems to be a faraway future for us, but maybe with a joint effort of financial institutions and donors organizations and private sector, we will make this future happen soon enough. Other than this, other areas, green areas that we are discussing within AmCham community is, of course, circular economy. And by the way, there was one discussion related to construction, but it was about the demolition waste and waste of construction materials. This is being a very hot topic here in Moldova, and we have one public talk dedicated to it that you can find online if you are interested on how it is possible to reuse, as part of circular economy, this type of waste. We are also very much focused on packaging waste management and other wastes, on water waste management, which is also a priority, an important topic within AmCham, and of course sustainable technologies, efficiency, and implementation of renewable energy. So please follow us and attend our events, and we are happy that we can provide you with valuable content. Now, to present the next speakers, one of the newest members of AmCham, Claudiu Bisnel. Claudiu is coming from Romania, and he will be presenting Brisk company and the activity of the company. We are very happy that you made it and you arrived to Moldova to be speaker of this event, and I'm sure you have a lot to share with us. Thank you so much, Claudiu.
Thank you, Mila. Mulțumesc, Mila. Hi, everyone. It's nice to be here. As Mila was saying, I'll briefly present ourselves. I'm representing a project cost and construction management company, Brisk Group. We operate in the Republic of Moldova. We've been working for the last 5 years with Kaufland. We've delivered several stores with them, some of them being EDGE certified. We are a very active player in the construction industry, and we are a strong advocate when it comes to sustainability. It has been on our agenda since we came to life as a company. We strongly pushed on the Romanian market. We have the benefit of applying lessons learned through our experience in the Western Hemisphere. We have an office in London as well, and we have learned a lot from our friends over there. And we are we are bringing a cross experience from there in the Romanian market, and we hope to bring it over here as well. With no further ado, I will start my presentation. Never start a presentation with an excuse, but my marketing team would be very harsh with me. I've done this myself, so this is the best that I could do from a marketing point of view, but I'm sure you'll find the information useful. So basically what I wanted to go through is Romania's experience in the sustainability market and its journey following through the 90s to the present days, and then basically go through some project case studies. So in the early efforts towards a sustainable future between the 1990s and 2000s, there were made some small steps, but I think important. We had the post-communist era reforms. We were adapting to the common market from a communist market. We had the initial environmental regulation, which was very important at that time, and we had the initial Ministry of Environment established at the very beginning in 1990. So the construction sector at that time was more than anything focused on reorganizing itself and basically upgrading itself to the existing needs in building infrastructure. Following through the next decade, Romania turned its view to the European Union, and I think here we can cross, basically we cross-experience Republic of Moldova at this point is looking towards adhering to the European Union, and I think it's important to see from or learn from our experience and leapfrog. Because we've done the same thing in respect to leapfrogging when it comes to the Western world in many respects, sustainability, digitalization, and so forth. So in that period, turning back to the 2000-2007, the period when we were looking to adhere to the European Union, we started to adapt EU legislation and environmental standards, introduction of the National Strategy for Sustainable Development. This brought to the common market awareness. Sorry is there something strange with the sound or? Okay, I'm perceiving it like that. Sorry about it. Okay, fair enough. So, I was saying there were initial steps done in that direction, and awareness began into the market. There were the first shapes around sustainable construction and a sustainable way of thinking and implementing construction altogether. So the Sustainable Development Post-EU started in force, having that preparing period. We started implementing of EU directives on waste management, water, air quality, and so forth. We had an increased investment in renewable energy, and obviously we started having national parks being protected. I'm hesitating a little bit over here because we are still struggling with that. We should do a better job in simple terms when it comes to protecting nature. So I was speaking in my earlier slide about advancement in renewable energy. So in the early 2010s to up to maybe 2008 to 2020, we had a series of projects being implemented in Romania. The ones that produced the most energy were wind projects which altogether at this point add up to 15% of the national energy produced. We have solar, which is something in like 2% and is growing. It's a huge market as we are speaking right now. The other portions being related 20% to nuclear and 25% of it to hydropower. Only the 10 remaining percent is due to fossil fuels, which I think it's a good portion for Romania and a confident one that we are going to eliminate all fossil fuels altogether in the next decade or so. 2007 brought Romania's accession to the European Union and a major turning point in respect to construction industry. We had the legislation framework put together, and we had the green building practices established during this period. In that period, and I'll jump to this slide, we had the initial and early implementation of green building standards, green building certification. Some of them were mentioned by the colleagues from IFC. We personally have been involved in certifying projects in LEED, BREEAM, EDGE, and there is also, as David was saying, a Romanian standard, which is specifically tailored for residential buildings, basically helping to increase the efficiency by fulfilling the points in the standard. By fulfilling these points, basically you increase your efficiency when it comes to the energetic potential of your building, basically reducing consumption, and as well having the right materials put into place. And also you can benefit from, as an end buyer, from green mortgages. In 2021, there was the adoption and NZEB standard for new buildings, which is nearly zero energy buildings. This is basically mandatory by law in Romania currently. It basically stimulates all the market to implement a sustainable way of looking at the building from the design stage, in having the right implementation during the construction stage, and also looking in efficiency during the operation. When it comes to public buildings, NZEB was implemented even earlier from the 2019s. Obviously, we still have challenges and ongoing barriers when it comes to sustainability, economics being one of them. Generally, it's still perceived as unfortunate it is to implement green solutions means higher capex expenditure, outfront expenditure to your building. Now, to reap the benefits are huge in terms of sustainability altogether, reducing the carbon footprint that our industry is responsible for. So I would take a pause here and mention that the construction industry is responsible for 40% of the total carbon footprint in the world, which is huge by any standard. Second of all, another thing which is not very positive when it comes to sustainability, I was reading an article a few years ago, and I've learned that the man-made objects, the man-made mass of the objects have surpassed, I think in 2020, if I recall correctly, have surpassed the organic matter, which is worrying in my thinking, especially taking account that most of these are produced not mandatory by a sustainable way. So economics still plays maybe a hurdle, but it's a hurdle for those which don't understand it, because we have currently, and the colleagues from IFS were saying, we have a lot of vehicles, financial vehicles to support green. The benefits economically are clearly in favor. What we need to do as a society is to implement the correct industry, adapt the industry to the correct needs when it comes to sustainability. So basically, simple examples in construction. Materials need to be sourced as locally as possible to reduce the carbon footprint associated to transportation. Materials should be recycled and put in the circular economy, as Mila was saying earlier, as much as possible. Recycling, waste management being the way forth. These are simple, though I know I'm contradicting myself, simple though complex things that need to be implemented. But I think they are big gainers for local industry and basically developing local potential when it comes to construction industry. There are also the environmental challenges that we still face due to the facts that I was saying earlier, pollution, deforestations, though we have continuing efforts in those directions. And if we are speaking strictly about Romania, we can see positive change, we can see awareness, and we can see people contributing more and more in the sustainable direction. Romanian goals for 2030 and beyond are to align with the EU Green Deal, basically to severely reduce the carbon footprint altogether and as well in our industry. There are planned initiatives and projects, government initiatives and private as well. Jumping to the case studies, I've chosen a few projects that were involved. One is a residential project. It's called Amber Forest. It's situated somewhere in the north of Bucharest. It's a residential development that has more than 500 housing units and another. When I say housing units, I'm referring to one-family units, houses, and another for 200 apartments. We have been involved in it from the very start. It has been developed all from the very start to the point that we are here now, which is something like 70% of progress, with sustainability in the back of the mind. Basically, the design is looking to reduce as much as possible the carbon footprint that this project has altogether in terms of what materials are being used here, trying to look into prefabrication. Prefabrication, in my view, in our view as a company, is the way forward from many respects. So it tackles the waste management. Currently, in construction, we waste a lot of material, and we waste as well a lot of energy doing that, transportation, carbon footprint associated with transportation and bringing materials to site, inefficient use of material, and then getting rid of them off the site, and then it comes to waste management and what happens with those materials. The other thing is the energy consumption that was brought in the mind of the developer by ourselves and the designers and all the team that participated in developing this project, basically having as much as possible efficiency when it comes to operation. So heat pumps, for example, are used, which alternate depends on the actual amenities, for example, for schools and retail and other portions from the project. We are looking at thermal heat pumps, while houses benefit from water-to-air type of heat pumps. The lighting used, basically looking into managing water consumption, and as well as I was telling you, making sure that all the materials that are used are, first of all, sourced as close as possible, and at the same time having properties that enable that the buildings that are constructed with them are as efficient as possible. For example, glazing, very important to have very qualitative glazing, because through windows we lose a lot of heat or receive a lot of heat depending on the season, and that puts a lot of pressure on heating or cooling our house, and that has a carbon footprint in itself. The other one that I've chosen is another residential development. This is again somewhere located in between center and northern part of Bucharest. It's a 9-block flat development, quite big for Bucharest standards. It has been certified BREEAM. Again, the same philosophy. We have been involved from the very beginning, looking into the way it has been designed, make it as sustainable as possible, looking at the materials used, trying to limit waste, and basically take care of the nature altogether through the implementation of the project. Now, what I wanted to say about this one in particular is that it was one of the first projects in Bucharest to truly bring a mixed-use type of approach, basically to bring amenities to the final user, and basically to reduce travel exposure for the people that live there, basically to assure ourselves that at least the carbon footprint associated with traveling is not that great and is significantly reduced for the inhabitants of this development. Right. Another one, though, that we have a few more that I want to mention. I've just named the logistics center because we are under an NDA and I don't want to use the name of, it's a big retailer. I think this is the right approach. So coming to this one, basically this is on 110 square meters, 110,000 square meters of development. It's a logistic hub for an important retailer, which is looking into being certified, is not yet certified, but looking into be certifying EDGE. This is a high-tech type of facility with huge freezers, a lot of high bay type of equipment, very smart in its approach, and looking to be very energy efficient. Again, during construction, a lot of prefabrication being used, as logistics and retail in general are the leading ways, the leading sectors when it comes to prefabrication. Materials that have been used, again, are in that respect sandwich panels that align to sustainability requirements, lighting the same, trying to use as cement. Our colleagues were mentioning about cement, so concrete that uses as little as possible in production fossil fuels and so forth. So again, I think all of these are good steps for the construction industry and in Romania towards a more sustainable future. Thank you very much, and if you have any further questions, I'm very happy to answer them. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudio. And basically, this is a moment to ask questions. I will ask Claudio, can you just stay here? And then Amit and David, also if you can join us in the chairs. No, just sit there. Just feel free to sit, yeah? So I hope that this discussion stimulates some additional questions for you. I mean, do not hesitate to ask, even if it's simple questions. Any volunteers with the first questions? Don't be afraid. Oh, okay, sure.
I will volunteer for the first question, and I want to ask whoever is able to answer, basically. Can we imagine a situation in the future that me, an SME that runs a factory, gets a call from my bank and I am asked or conditioned to certify green or to get any type of green certification for my factory or for my office as a condition to get loans for my business. Is this realistic or I'm exaggerating?
Thank you for the question. One of the elements that we have seen in the banking sector is interesting, is called Paris alignment. And as IFC and World Bank, we started Paris alignment. Normally what happens is that we start this type of new initiatives, but then in a few years it reaches the commercial banks and financial institutions. What Paris alignment means that we have, when we invest in any investment, our investments must be Paris aligned. And Paris alignment has two elements. One is mitigation and one is adaptation. And on mitigation, if you go to the World Bank website and check for what does it mean for buildings, Paris alignment for buildings, it says the projects need to be EDGE certified equivalent to be Paris aligned. So any project that World Bank or IFC invests needs to be either EDGE certified or equivalent to EDGE certified level to be investable. Otherwise, we will not invest. So to your point, this means that there would be a time where the banks will ask you that if you need a loan, it's okay, but you need to show that your building is green to be invested. You probably have heard about the EPC labels, right? The EPC labels in Netherlands, in the UK, in France. Now, many years ago, they said every building needs to have an EPC rating. An EPC rating, you could have A rated to F or G rated, so like this fridge type rating systems. Now there is a regulation in France, in Netherlands, and UK that says if you are rated below this level, you cannot rent your house or your building, you cannot sell your house or building, you cannot get a loan for your building, right? So it's really critical, you know, we see that this is coming, right? What it means that, let's say, if this building is not an efficient building, either you need to improve this building or it's yours. You can keep it, you cannot sell it, you cannot rent it, you cannot take a loan on this building. So to me, I think this situation is going to come and we need to get ready for it. And the companies and the banks that are starting early, they are the ones that they will have less pain. The ones that leave this for the future, they would have much higher passing rates to go through that situation. Thank you.
Then I would have a follow-up questions to Claudiu. You said Romania started with the sustainability strategy back in 2001. That was 23 years ago. So you had, I would say, the luxury of working along 23 years on the sustainability path. What's your projection for the Republic of Moldova? Will we enjoy the same 23 years or we need kind of a move?
If I knew the answer for that, be sure I'll take it to the bookies, but I can only speculate. Now, if we apply lessons learned from our journey, Romania's journey, it has been a very slow journey at the very beginning, truth being told. Basically, the society altogether, deciding factors and general society was reluctant when it heard about sustainability. Basically, they didn't understand it. In later years, and when I'm saying later years, probably in the last, I'm dare to say 8 to 7 years, even less than that, the real progress has been made when it comes to sustainability in Romania. I remember when we started in the Romanian market, we were talking about sustainability and people were looking, okay, at that point they understood it, but they had more important things on the agenda when I'm talking about construction industry here. More important things on the agenda like costs, time, and cost and time. And didn't play in the factor of sustainability, which is, again, they place into the cost and time of implementing buildings, and as well in bringing, and I'm sure when I would put it now if you mentioned that a safe bet on what our colleagues were saying from IFC, it will be very expensive not to be sustainable. In the near future, not very far future. And I think this is a good thing. We need to be sustainable, and we need to be in the right set of mind, and be very conscious as a society that if we don't do that, we'll end up in a very uncomfortable place altogether. Global warming is real and is very dangerous. It's dangerous directly to our life and societies, and is dangerous financially as well. A simple example, insurances. Insurances will skyrocket for the most affected areas. It will be very expensive to build in those areas and so forth. Now, answering your question, I think Moldova has as well has a great potential when it comes to implementing sustainability, and one is due to the human factor. I think society is much better prepared in this point of time, even though you are at the very beginning, but has a better understanding about sustainability. And you've proven yourselves as a society, and I'll take a simple example, digitalization. Digitalization, you're doing better than us. So I'm pretty sure you'll do very well with sustainability. Thank you.
Thank you, Claudius. Thank you, Mitz. Any other questions? It should be some questions from the audience. Oh, Tatiana.
So I'll have a more practical question. Let's say a bank finances a project, which should be green, a green one, but how this bank at the end ensure that this project actually was done green? I mean, finally, the final project. Is there some checks that are done? And what happens if it is not, it should be?
Usually, the certification schemes have a final audit of the project. Based on that audit, an auditor goes to the field, to the built asset, and make sure that all the energy efficiency, water efficiency strategies, and the more eco-friendly materials were used in that building. Right now, that is the way that in the market you have like a third-party assessment that really shows that really ensures you that assets it has a better performance when compared to a conventional building. So in that way, these certification systems, when similar to the energy performance certificate, they are able to demonstrate that those buildings are demonstrating a better performance. And the advantage of using like a green building certification is that the audit process, it is very robust because there is an auditor that goes there, that auditor submits the information to a different entity that has a quality control. So another entity, it is the one that provides the final certification, because in some other ways it could be like open the door for any type of greenwash, because if we didn't have these different steps for verification, then perhaps there could be some arrangements when that side audit was done that some energy efficient measures were not implemented. So for the banks, when they have this certificate, they will make sure that that project has a better performance when compared to a common project.
So just to add to what David said, there are two certificates in EDGE. There is one certificate for design and one certificate for construction. So in your loan, you can say, I need you to bring me the design certificate, which means that the design of the asset includes all the sustainability elements and is verified by third party that these elements will make the standard. And then the post-construction certification means that the auditor has gone to the site after construction. So there are two stages. And having these two stages gives you the peace of mind. Normally, the way that we deal with these loans, we say, for example, if we want to give you a benefit, we give you half of the benefit by design and half of that after construction certification.
Thank you. I think that's some question here. No? Yeah, great.
Thank you. Alexander Paladin, real estate valuer. How do you think, from the of a broad experience, how the real estate market will receive this kind of real estate, and how will be the reactions of bank loans, mortgages for this kind of this trade? Will it be received like the luxury real estate, or probably it will be the same, the normal way, normal produced real estate premises? How do you think for Moldova?
Right, I'll try to answer this. Again, from lessons learned from Romania. By applying sustainable principles, certificating your building, either EDGE, BREEAM, LEED, whatever, all of them guarantee a scorecard that plays as a roadmap to the correct implementation of your sustainable goal in your building. You'll get a better product. By getting a better product, obviously you'll have more appeal to a wider market. Your product will be worth much more than a product that doesn't fulfill all the necessities. So, quality of the product, one tick. The other one, efficiency of the product. You'll have a more efficient product from an energetic point of view. So basically, if it's a very efficient building, your operational costs will be next to zero, let's say. Which is, if you're speaking about retail, office, and even the simple household, it's very important. From a society point of view, having less energy consumption, thinking about Republic of Moldova and Romania as well, once placed into the general sustainable factors, basically to reduce the carbon footprint and reduce our impact on the global warming, at the same time placed in the strategic point of view, basically not having dependency on imported energy. You can do with less energy. So, summarizing, you'll have a better product, you'll have a quality of life in that building for its inhabitants and its operators, you'll have a more efficient way of operation, and you'll place yourself with many of these products as a society in a better environment.
So, to your question, just to add to what Claudio mentioned, in terms of the type of buildings, right? You can do this even for low-income housing. And that's very, very important, because you don't want this product to be only for rich people, right? You don't want the rich, I mean, the reality, what we have seen in the market, is that the rich people doesn't really care. They don't really care about energy saving, right? For them, today, to pay 100 euros or 200 euros doesn't matter. That's the change in their pocket. But for a low-income family that's saving 20 or 50 euros per month, changes their life is really important, right? And that's where the low-income housing is actually a sector where, for example, in Colombia, we have certified roughly around 100,000 homes. And 70% of 100,000 homes, 70,000 homes are low-income housing. And these are the people that the house price there, those houses are around $40,000. Just to give you, 35,000 euros, one housing unit, right? But for that housing unit, the person is getting two benefits. One, they are getting less interest rate from bank. Two, they are paying less for their bills, right? And number three, and this is the best part, is that IFC, with the donors, we cover the delta cost of greening. So as a developer, when you go and get a loan from a bank, you can ask for a better rate loan that covers the cost of greening. So you don't need to pay anything extra. The buyer will get a better mortgage, so they don't need to pay extra, but they are getting even better mortgage. And also they are getting lower utility bills. So the bank is benefiting because bank is providing more finance. The developer is benefiting because what they build, they sells faster, everyone buys them. The buyer benefits because they are getting better mortgage and better lower utility bills. So everyone wins in this scenario. At the same time, the country wins, because when you in the Republic of Moldova, if you're imagine every single house here, it was a green building. Your energy reduction for the entire country would be much lower. You would need less power plants. Right? So that's why this is really important win-win scenario for everyone. And we would be happy to listen more to your projects and what role you are playing and how we can help you with that.
Yeah, I just wish to add here, so it's not about luxury, right? So it's basically, to be honest with you, not that many people care about the impacts on the climate change, right? So what is driving us as their humans in many cases is if we can kind of reduce our costs, that's what will drive us. It might be marketing parts, just the green buildings, like most probably for this luxury one, guys, they might take care about their planets, so they're a bit in different level. But in vast majority, that's what we see from the practical point of view. The green buildings concept is not about having this luxury one, but it's more about to be more affordable. And here what is the concept is working is this reduction in terms of their bills, right? And just once again to point out, if you've seen this kind of numbers, the cost of their green building, making their your usual to the green is actually not that significantly higher. It's like maximum like up to 3%. And the beauty is once you are using, for example, this edge tool is opening you way more ways with the very small investment, additional one, you might see and just significantly reduce their either the size of their energy spending of water or the materials. So it's all about in this case, business case, right? And the business case is our consumers. I know that's, in vast majority of countries is this kind of thing once nobody is asking, right? So like the clients is not asking for this kind of thing. The government is not kind of putting us the regulation. So why we should go to that kind of area? So if there is no incentive, but believe me, incentive will be there and pretty soon. And as well, the incentive as for me as the owner of the apartment is the energy bill. And if I have a choice to pay 1,000 euros and 100 euros, for example, right? Then it's quite a big difference. Even even making some between in the middle class, it's still making a difference. So, David, please.
No, and just to complement that, for instance, one of the top 5 real estate developers in Colombia, the first project that they certified, I don't know, like 7 years ago, they had an extra cost of more than 7%. They learned from what they did, they changed how they designed, they sourced their materials from different providers, and in that way they were able to lower the cost, the additional cost from 7% to lower than 3%. So in that way, if you identify the correct measures, you are able to achieve those higher standards with very low additional costs. And the advantage is that when the market starts to adopt those different strategies, then those new technologies or those new, even the knowledge in the market becomes more and more affordable. That is something something very basic, like the water efficient fixtures. When in Colombia, when we started with this program, when you requested the provider what was the water flow of a shower head or a faucet, the supplier didn't know what was the water flow. Right now, all the providers in Colombia, they gave you the data sheet of that equipment, telling you what is the performance of that specific material or that specific technology. So in that way, once you start to give that information in the market and to request that information in the market, then it is more and more affordable and easy to implement these green building standards. So from my point of view, the largest developers in the region in Latin America, they have understood this potential and they are leading the market, and the small companies are like following their lead, because if they know that if they don't go that way, they are losing a business opportunity.
Just to add to what David was saying, totally agree. I think the element that I want to stress out from my point of view is, and I've mentioned in the presentation as well, is prefabrication. Basically, to bring to the table prefabrication. Why that? Why is that? We eliminate waste, reduce money, reduce waste. We get a much better product because we do it in a controlled environment. We don't need so much labor force. Labor force beforehand was widely available and much cheaper. Now, in the construction industry, even if you are able and willing to pay the money, you don't have the labor force. So prefabrication is the answer when it comes to quality, money, carbon footprint, and time as well, because it's much, much quicker. What we need to do as a society, and this applies, the Western world does it better because they have experienced this earlier. My experience from London, they are using prefabricated segments, elements in all the types of buildings. We didn't do it so much in this part of the world because, as mentioned earlier, we had a widely available resource, though inefficiently doing it. Now we should look into much more in this, set up industries and plants that produce this, and this will benefit altogether to the entire society and obviously to the direct product that we aim to build.
Yes, I want to ask, what will we do with our old buildings? What measures should be implemented? And if you have a guideline or a standards, what measures can be taken to get this EDGE certification? And also I have a curiosity if you have some statistics or data, if this building certification had an impact on the price for the final consumer. Because you have mentioned that the extra price for the building is about 3%, but how about the final price for the consumer? Is it much more or is it the same? Thank you.
So two questions. You ask first on existing buildings, what to do with existing buildings. And you're right, it's a really important sector, right? If you look at the city, most of the city is built, right? A lot of old buildings. What do we do? The last thing we want to do is to demolish those buildings and build a new one, right? So we want to protect those buildings and refurbish them. If we look at the buildings, there are two types of buildings, either single owner or multi-owner buildings. So with the single owners, it's much easier. The single owners, if you convince the single owners, we can refurbish. And what we have seen is that, and to me, the biggest owner of the existing assets is government itself. So I would say, government, why don't we start with you to refurbish all your buildings that you own, ministries, schools, hospitals, and this can be, World Bank can provide loans, EIB can provide loans, or anyone else. But it's important the reason why it's important for a big asset owner like government to do this is that then it builds the skills, it builds the industries, it builds the solutions, and the same solutions can be replicated for other builders, other owners. And then the second big player would be the ones that they have portfolio of assets, right? So I don't know who are the big owners of the assets here in Moldova, but that would be my second element. The last one would be actually the single family, like the apartment with 200 owners. That would be really difficult. But for those, what can be done is that maybe in Romania, again, there has been this coupon system that gives coupons to the owners and say, okay, if you bring your old fridge or old washing machine, we give you you get a more efficient one. Get the coupon, 20 euros, and go and get a new one. And yeah.
Just to add, I don't want to interrupt, sorry for, in Romania we had, and I think here there will be a program of enveloping the building. So basically, as Omid was saying, we started in Romania with the governmental, and ZEP 2019, governmental buildings, social buildings, schools, so all of these were brought to the program and went through the process of being bettered from an energy point of view, basically to envelop them, put better windows, and from case to case to change installations. Then the following ones that underwent this kind of a program were the block of flats, which are a lot in the Romanian cities, the community's heritage, and a lot of people, majority of people live in them. So the extensive, huge program started and is undergoing to better the energy efficiency of these buildings, of this building stock. Obviously, I totally agree with what you're saying, Omid, in terms of never demolish, reconvert. Everything, even if you have, I don't know, like you have, like us, old factory sites, beforehand it wasn't the best thing that we've done, but we demolished a lot of it. The right way to do it is to reconvert, and you get such wonderful reconversion of the cities plus energy efficiency. Sorry for cutting you.
Thank you. Once we transfer to another question, can I kindly ask you to do a very quick feedback form? It's quite important for us to hear what you like, what you don't like. It will help us to improve in the next. So then we are going to their question.
Catalina, OTP Bank.
So I think there was one more question. There were two questions, right? I wanted to make sure that I answered the second question. On the pricing. You know, in Colombia, for example, there has been a fixed price, housing pricing by government, and they managed to do EDGE certification within the price without increasing the price. So that's a possibility to do the same price. There is also experience of developers selling it slightly more expensive because they are green.
And just to complement, for instance, the project that I showed, this project that installed the solar hot water system, they are transferring that additional cost to the end user because they really know that the additional cost it is very, very low, and they are able to provide the end users with 50% energy savings. So they are able to gather a share of the market, even selling with higher cost than the competition, because they are offering these very specific products that implement these technologies that are not common in Colombia. So it is to understand the market, what differentiates you, and how to gather that market. So I think it is important to understand what you are doing, how are you doing it, and yes, and as Sumit said, in the social housing in Colombia, it has a cap price. So this social housing have been able to be certified without surpassing this top cost for building.
Okay. I have a practical question. As Andrei said, people are not used with climate change impacts and that they have to do something with it. So when the bank asks the client to build something green, we need to be able to explain to the client what does it mean, green building. For example, I'm a banker, I'm not an engineer, and I don't know what kind of materials are green, and for example, how thick shall be the walls of the building. So will you provide this consultant support for the clients?
We have done that with different banks. That has been the case in Latin America. We work together with them. First, we do some capacity building inside the bank, so the people that are working with the market, they know what is a green building, they know what are the main features that a building should implement in order to improve the energy efficiency. And as part of the program, we also work with the real estate developers in order to provide that technical assistance to the market so they are able to certify their projects. So it is like a comprehensive approach that it is working together with the banks and also with the real sector, because in that way we are making sure that what we are promoting, it is really implemented in the market. And in that sense, for instance, when we work with banks, we have an agreement with them that we support up to, 20 projects, 30 projects, whatever. And as part of that program, we are able to create some basic skills in the market, so they are able to implement those standards in the future projects that they are certifying. So in that way, we try to catalyze the implementation of these green building standards.
I'll try to be very pragmatic in my answer and direct. Basically, to add to what David was saying, taking case studies from Romania. That's why consultants like us exist. Basically, we've been through this process. We've been educated in this direction. We are here to support the developers, the banks, and basically from our role as project managers, stakeholder managers, to assure the correct liaison with all the parties involved and assure that the product is being delivered to the correct specifications and the money are invested correctly. It's called, we've done it in the UK, we are doing it in Romania. It was very heavily on the money and cost money and time and quality of work. Now you have the sustainable aspect brought into this reporting. It's an independent fund surveyor report that goes to the financial institutions, and they get the intel how the project is going, and basically that's the monitoring part of the consultancy towards the bank. And the initial stage before financing, for example, we are doing this for a big project in Romania, which is being built in Cluj. It's a technical due diligence that encompasses all of these factors and sustainability, taxonomy as well.
And something that I forgot to mention, when we work together with banks, part of what we do, it is that we do some events with the sector. So we do like an event similar to this one, for the developers and for possible buyers of those homes or of those buildings, so that people understand what is a green building, what are the benefits, what are the advantages that they are going to have if they buy that building with a green mortgage or with a green loan. That is something that we need to put in the market, and we know that it's something that takes time, because usually when you approach the market and you tell them what we are doing, some people understand, but many people don't understand, so you have to keep doing that frequently so people really understand what we are promoting and to try to achieve our goals.
Bună ziua! Republica Moldova totuși parcurge pași mici, din păcate, către eficiența energetică, însă mergem încet, încet. Vreau să adaug totuși despre clădirile vechi și noi. Deci guvernul a aprobat în aprilie, acum recent, 2024, programul de finanțare Fondul pentru Eficiență Energetică în clădirile rezidențiale, care este gestionat de către Centrul Național pentru Energie Durabilă. În ce constă acest fond? Da? Deci el lucrează cu granturi, alocații, donații internaționale și renovează, să zic așa, sau eficientizează energetic clădirile vechi. Acum, în derulare sunt două proiecte, două apeluri, unde se lucrează cu asociațiile de locatari. De ce asociații? Pentru că majoritatea clădirilor rezidențiale din municipiul Chișinău și din suburbiile acestea, Iedineț, Hâncești și așa mai departe, ele toate sunt în asociații, în condominiu, acum APC-uri, da? Și e foarte greu de lucrat cu oamenii în parte, de adus la cunoștință, în general, ce înseamnă eficiență energetică. Pentru că, din păcate, oamenii de la noi, suntem și noi așa un pic mai în urmă, însă încercăm să mergem înainte. Încercăm să le aducem la cunoștință ce este eficiență energetică, ce este renovarea clădirii și așa mai departe. Chiar anul trecut, cu ajutorul PNUD Moldova, au fost eficientizate energetic și anume prin trecerea de la distribuția pe verticală a agentului termic la orizontală a agentului termic, deci în 4 clădiri rezidențiale din municipiul Chișinău, Mircea cel Bătrân, Hâncești, Bulgară și Dacia, deci niște adrese. În urma reabilitării încălzirii în aceste blocuri, deci deja se văd reduceri la facturi de aproximativ 25%. Ceea ce este foarte bine. Dar cum a avut loc deci acest proces? În primul rând, este foarte, foarte greu de lucrat cu oamenii de la noi. Și nu de atât că poate ei sunt, nu știu, neînțelegători, pur și simplu oamenii nu au bani. Iar proiectul din anul trecut a constat din 80% din fonduri europene cu ajutorul PNUD Moldova, Programul Națiunilor Unite pentru Dezvoltare, și doar 20% a fost contribuția locatarilor. Să zicem că chiar și aceste 20% au fost mult pentru unii, însă încet, încet, lor totuși li s-a dat posibilitatea de a achita în rate pe parcursul a un an sau doi. Acum sunt în derulare alte două proiecte, deci a Centrului Național pentru Energie Durabilă cu ajutorul centrului, pentru a fi renovate energetic mai multe clădiri. Pentru aceasta a fost un apel unde asociațiile de locatari au putut aplica și depune un dosar cu un set de documente prin care aceștia solicită întâi un audit energetic în baza căruia se va evalua care sunt măsurile necesare pentru eficientizarea energetică a blocurilor. Aici putem menționa și anveloparea clădirii, trecerea la distribuția pe orizontală, care este mai prietenoasă mediului, panourile fotovoltaice și încă multe alte măsuri. Așa că bine ați venit pe piața noastră, noi chiar avem nevoie de suportul dumneavoastră și mulțumim!
So it was more comment rather than question, right? So in that regards, I think we already kind of a little bit out of time. It's a lot of good discussion. Should we can wrap up? No. Yeah. So we still here to answer on your questions. We can just move to the more better location where we can get some refreshments and food. Thank you so much for our panelists for answering those hard questions. And once again, we are very welcome to have you here. This is the first kind of events that we are aiming to stimulate this kind of discussion. There is nothing wrong and right thing to do. It's a lot of things to do for all of us, right? So it's like there is a role for the financial institutions, there is a role for the government, there is a role for the associations of owners, there is a role of the constructors, material providers. It's a huge amount of work for everybody. And this is the thing what we are trying to tackle a topic a little bit, just to stimulate the discussion, just to think about this kind of topic. And I may tell you, as the Moldova in the way of the EU accession, this kind of speed will come way, way, way faster than other EU countries have been experienced. And all those kind of 5 years horizon is not that far as we're expecting. And the major goal that I wish you to learn from this specific event, that we are not talking about something futuristic, conceptual. This is the thing what is already working, doing all around the world. Is not that difficult in terms of implementation. It will require some effort from all of us, but this is the way that we just need to do, because there is no any other way. As for me, I must probably, my strategy, I will not even think about not buying the green building. Even to build non-green building right now, it's already not an asset. So thank you so much once again. We will be here just for answering your private discussion, private questions. And thank you so much for your attention. Hope you already responded to your feedback. And I hope to see you soon, most probably to the continuation of this discussion, or to talk about some new topics, like we talked about their blue finance, climate smart agriculture. This is what we're aiming to bring as the knowledge sharing. Yeah, so all the materials, as I mentioned at the beginning, will be distributed. So, and thank you so much.